Okay.
Oh, we are on.
We are on.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Certification 101. My name is Dana Kalija, and as the slide says, I'm a senior evangelist with Microsoft Learning. With me today, my willing victim is Christopher Harrison. He's an MCT, a Microsoft Certified Trainer, and he has his own company, Geek Trainer, and he calls himself the head geek, and I can actually validate that, yes, he is the head geek. So we wanted to talk to you today about certification in Microsoft exams. One of the reasons why Microsoft asks me to go out and do this is not just because I'm an evangelist, but because I used to manage the team that creates the certification exams in Redmond. And so I'm very familiar with the certification exams, and Christopher has actually worked on some of the exams. So we have a little bit of intimate knowledge here. Let's talk about the benefits of certification. And, okay, now we're going forward. So in general, and this is not talking about Microsoft certifications yet or anything, one of the reasons why you should get certified is getting certified helps you learn things. So there was a study published in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago, okay, maybe it was a couple of months ago, in January, that talked about the benefits of certification being that if you're studying to take a test, you actually learn more. Rather than just, oh, I have an implementation coming up, I need to study up and figure out how to do it. You actually get smarter when you test, when you prepare to test. So that's one of the reasons why you should go ahead and do it. For a career in IT, we believe that Microsoft certifications are your best choice. We go through a rigorous exam development process. That's the group that I used to manage in Redmond. And Chris is going to talk a little bit about that exam development process a little bit further in the presentation. But the process that we go through is actually certified. So our certification process is certified. We have ongoing maintenance of our live exams. We don't just publish these things and then walk away and let them flounder out there in the world. We take care of them and we make sure that they're still relevant. We incorporate customer feedback into our exams. Part of the exam life cycle is getting that customer feedback and acting on it to make the exams better. And we have a strong anti-piracy program. One of our women who is here at TechEd with us, Krista Wall, a little bit later in the week, she's going to be in the lounge area by the Microsoft Learning booth, and she's going to be talking about some of the steps that we're taking to increase our anti-piracy activities. So piracy is when someone cheats on an exam and devalues your credential because they look just as smart as you with the same credential. We are actively addressing that even stronger than we have in the past. And, well, we'll just move on. So when I talked about our certifications being certified, we have the accreditation value. We have the American Council on Education recommending our certifications because they know that we are ANSI accredited for developing exams. And we have the European version of the American Council on Education endorsing our exams also. They are saying that if you want college credit for these exams, you'll get it, that kind of thing. So we have other organizations endorsing Microsoft exams. When you become part of the Microsoft certified community, you are becoming part of a huge group of like-minded individuals. And as part of that community, you can go to them, and we have forums, blogs, all that sort of thing, where you can reach out to people and say, hey, what are you doing in your career? What's your next job step? Can you help me with this? So 5.2 million people have Microsoft certifications, and we think you should be one of them. Recently, we've had, well, some of these are from 2009 and 2008, but the press certainly likes our certifications. And I'm not trying to impress the press. What I'm trying to impress are your hiring managers. I'm trying to impress your customers so that they think that the Microsoft certifications that you hold, the credentials that you hold, have value, because that'll help you get a job, find a job, keep a job. So let's talk about Microsoft certifications a little bit more specifically. In our Microsoft certification family, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that we have our IT certifications. And this is what most of our certifications that we'll be talking about, well, all of our certifications that we'll be talking about today are in. We also have our Microsoft Office Specialist certifications. Those are sort of the end user certifications, so people that you take care of in your organization who are using Word, Excel, PowerPoint, that kind of thing. That's the kind of certification that they can seek. But starting at the bottom, well, there we go. We'll start at the top. Very highest level, Microsoft Certified Architect. These are people who are at the top of their game. They've probably been in the industry 15 to 20 years. They design systems, they design not just solutions, but entire ideas for organizations, and then they can take those out and take them to different organizations. This is a board review process, so this isn't just going in and taking an exam, and that board is not a bunch of Microsoft people sitting around going, yes, you're smart, we're going to make you an architect. It is a bunch of fellow architects that you go in front of and you make your presentation, and they decide if you're qualified to be called an architect. So it's kind of an interesting thing that Microsoft has taken themselves out of the middle and said, no, the community knows best, we're going to let them take care of it. The next level down is the Microsoft Certified Master, and this program is so cool. It started off as the Exchange Ranger program, for any of you that were familiar with that, and this was people who would get in with the product group and really get deep in everything and then go out into the community. And what we've done now is we've sort of codified that, and what it is it's a computer-based test and hands-on exams. And the computer-based test is delivered at select Prometric testing sites, so only certain testing sites qualify to deliver this. And it validates expert level skills. And we're going to have, I think, about 33 masters here this week. And they will be walking around with little cards all over. And so if someone happens, and they're going to be wearing black shirts with red lettering. And if you walk up to one of them and ask them about being a master, they will tell you the level of effort that it went into to getting this credential. It's not for everybody, but talk to one of those people. We're running a little promotion, a little contest. Talk to them, you'll hear about it. Okay, so Microsoft Certified IT Professional and Professional Developer. This is where we want to focus today. These are computer-based exams, and they're delivered at Prometric testing centers worldwide. They validate job role skills, so the why and the when would you do something, not the how would you do it, okay? So when we're talking about the how, we're talking about the technology specialist level. That's, can you make the software do what it's meant to do? On the professional level, that's where we're saying you need to bring in your judgment. You need to know what you're doing. Because I know that we all know the people who can make the software do whatever you tell them to make it do, but you wouldn't trust them to figure anything out for you. Okay, so that's sort of the different level. Not that the TS is a bad level, but we don't want you to stop there. We want you to keep going on to the professional level and really show that you can bring those value judgments into play and say, you know what, I can solve your problems. I'm not just going to design you a database, I'm going to make sure it works. And then the Microsoft Technology Associate level. Are there any university students in the audience? No? Okay, then I'll just gloss over this. Basically, the Microsoft Technology Associate is sort of an entry-level cert that is really meant for students. We deliver it through our academic channels right now, and it's not offered in our commercial channels. That's all I need to say about it. So the benefits of being Microsoft certified. Studies have shown that there is improved project deployment with the more certified people you have on your team. I'm, not making it up. We have increased team performance and productivity. Hiring managers have told us that the more certified people that they have on their team, the more productivity they get out of the team. Improved customer satisfaction. And this is once again the hiring managers. They believe that certifications improve the level of support and service that they can offer to customers. And enhanced efficiency. I won't read the numbers to you. And this is a really interesting one. Increased employee expertise and retention. So one of the reasons why I have worked for Microsoft for 13 years is because they keep investing in me, and it makes me feel valued. And we know that Microsoft has changed so much over the past 13 years. Why would I stick around and go through all this change, and now it's this huge company, and we used to be able to do these little bitty cowboy things and whatever we wanted kind of thing. The reason why I stick around is they keep building me. And when, as a hiring manager, when you say, go get certified, I'll pay for it, or get certified and I'll recognize you this way, you're saying, I believe in you, I'm investing in you, and I want to keep you. I want to grow your skills. So the best way to get a job is by having work experience, right, on your resume. But we need to balance that out with Microsoft certification, because I can put on my resume just about anything I want to. And a lot of the time, people don't check as deeply as they should. So for example, did you work at Microsoft for 13 years? Why, yes, I did. And they can validate that, and that's easy. But I can also say, and I developed our in-house purchasing program, and I can make up anything I want. And a hiring manager typically is not going to call and investigate to that level. But what they can do is they can check your Microsoft certifications. And that is Microsoft saying, we stand behind this person. We know they have these skills because they passed these tests. So this is my little David Letterman shtick, and I'm not going to do it because I refuse to. But here are our top 10 reasons to hire certified. Oh, there's number 10. There we go. We've talked about a couple of them. One of them that we did not talk about is improving support costs. So when we talk about that team being more productive, we are talking about a hit to your bottom line, a benefit to your bottom line. ROI for certification is that your support costs go down. Easy. And the other one that I thought was interesting on here is the see objective results of your training investments. So how many of us go to training for a week and sit there and go, yes, I got it, and then you walk out, and then 2 weeks later you're back at your job and you're doing it, and then you're like, oh man, what did they say in that class? And you've got your little book that you're never going to open again, that you took notes in all week long. Go ahead and follow up your training with a certification exam, and as that study that we talked about in the New York Times mentioned, your skills will solidify right there because you're being tested on it right then and there. Now, Microsoft certification, it's not a, yeah, you went to training, we're going to give you a stamp because you took this exam. It's not a certificate program. That's why our classes don't align one-to-one with the certifications. It is a certification program. We're certifying skills that you gain, not attendance at training. Okay? So it's related, but it's not the same thing. Okay, from the hiring manager perspective, so before I became an evangelist for Microsoft, when I was managing the team in Redmond, I was a hiring manager. And one of the things that I had to do was figure out who I was going to hire for technical positions. And I'm not technical. Now, I could go to one of the folks in the product groups and I could say, hey, can you screen my candidates for me? But sometimes I would have a lot of candidates, and so my first pass at a stack of resumes is this person certified? I'm going to take a closer look at them. And then I put all the other resumes to the side. If I get through my certified stack and I don't find someone good, then I'll go to my other stack. But my first cut is always going to be, did they take a test? Does somebody else say they have good skills? That's it. So now Christopher is going to get a little bit deeper in talking to you about the path to certification, the things that you need to do, and he's also going to talk about some of the opportunities that we have for you here at TechEd this week to get certified.
All right, thanks a lot, Dana. All right, I had a mouse on here somewhere. Keep coming over that direction. I had something. Okay, in any event. So the path to certification here. So the experience that is required, one of the things that I want to do real quick, just a real quick show of hands, how many people out there think that certification isn't real world based? Got one person. Everybody
one
else,
honest person.
one honest person. So I've got one person that says that, you know what, I don't know whether or not this is real world. And I actually want to talk not only just about the process of becoming certified, but also the process of building the certification exams, because there's actually quite a bit that goes into them, that every single question actually goes through a rather large vetting process. How the exams come to being also goes through quite a bit. So you're going to notice that the exams really are, in fact, designed to measure your hands-on product experience, that the goal of the exam is to show whether or not you can actually do this. So if you're talking about a SharePoint exam, it's can you develop this web part? Can you successfully implement search in SharePoint Server 2010? Now, by far the best way to prepare is to get hands-on experience with the technology. Because of the fact that I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, one of the rules is that I have to be certified to the pro level on any technology that I'm going to teach on, which I think makes a lot of sense. And so as a result, I've taken probably about 55 to 60 Microsoft certification exams. And I really can't tell you the number of times where I'll be going through an exam, I'll see a question, and I'll go, oh, I know what the answer to that was because I was fighting that problem 3 weeks ago, or I was fighting that problem 2 months ago. So the questions really are designed to not only just test your real-world ability, but you'll also notice that that is the best way to prepare, is to get that hands-on experience and start doing it. Now, people really can't pass the exams unless they have that hands-on experience, unless they know the product intimately. So that simply going off and getting a book and just walking through the book and not really sitting down and playing with the product, I'm here to tell you, is not going to get you through the exam. Now, as far as the IT certification goes, you're going to notice here that we do have the student side here with the MTA. I'm going to leave behind the MTA, and I really want to start with the MCTS, that Microsoft Certified Technology Specialist. And Dana hit this a couple of minutes ago, but I want to come back and touch on it one more time, which is really that difference between the MCTS and the IT Pro, or the Professional Developer. And I think very simply the difference between them is the MCTS is this is somebody that I can go to and say, I need you to do this. So I need you to build this workflow, or I need you to implement this database maintenance plan, or I need you to perform this action. Meanwhile, the IT Pro, as we'll see, is going to be more geared towards, well, talk to me, let me talk to the customer, figure out what their problems actually are, and then go from there. Now, one of the big things to highlight here is that if you are going to go on to obtain a pro-level certification, you have to have the associated TS level certification. Now, as far as the order in which you take the exams, it really doesn't matter. You could take the pro exam first, then you could come back and take the TS level exam. But you're not going to actually get anything as far as certification goes by taking just the pro exam. That it's only ever going to count for you once you actually take the TS level. So it's the TS level, go back, keep working with the product, keep working with your clients, keep going in and exploring the product from there, and then the next step is to move on to take either the IT Pro or the MCPD. There's really no difference between the two. It's just simply that the IT Pro, of course, is going to be more for things like database, Active Directory, etc., while the developer is going to be more the developer side of things, so .NET 4.0, SharePoint development, etc. But they are the exact same level of certification. Now, again, that IT Pro is a how should I rather than that how do I. So given this particular scenario, given this that we're getting from the client, then what's the next step? Now, most people, and I'll admit, even myself, really generally stop at that level. But if you really do want to take it to the next level, you'll notice that there is a master's certification. And I really like the name on that because it is a lot like going off and obtaining a master's degree. Now, what you're going to notice here is that the prerequisites right from the get-go are going to be much higher. That in order to obtain an MCM, you actually have to go through special training and you have to qualify for that special training. Now, the qualification process isn't just to try and immediately weed people out because we're going to go, hey, wait a minute, we really don't want you as part of that program. It's actually a self-defense for the person that's going to be applying, because generally speaking, those training courses are going to be rather expensive, and if you don't meet this set of requirements, you're going to really be just completely lost in the weeds. So there is an interview process that you have to go through before you start working down that path, and then eventually you'll go off and submit your documentation for board review, and then you'll also, like Dana mentioned, go off and take a couple of different exams as well. Now, the last one that's worth highlighting is the MCA, or the Microsoft Certified Architect, and I really do call this the PhD level, that in order to obtain the MCA, you have to have obtained all the other certifications, and then you move on to the MCA. And that board review process, again, very similar to obtaining a PhD, and that board is not just going to be put together by people who are experts in the product, it's also going to be people that maybe are not overly tech savvy, because it's not just your knowledge that they're testing. They are testing your knowledge, but they're also testing, how well do you deal with clients? Could you actually go to a very large client, have conversations with people that know the product, have conversations with people that don't know the product, figure out what needs to be done, and come up with the appropriate solutions. Now let's talk about the specific exams themselves, the MCP exams, and let's talk about this development process. Now, the first step in the development process is trying to figure out what is it that we want to actually try and certify people on. What products do we want to offer certifications on? And then on top of that, is there a need for a split, maybe based on certain areas for that particular product? Or, for example, do we want to maybe just combine everything? And I think a couple of great examples there would be SQL Server and then SharePoint. That if you take a look at SQL Server, especially going forward into 2008, there's now 3 very distinct areas. That you have your admin side, you've got your dev side, and then you've also got the BI side on the very end there. So we're going to take this very, very large product and split that up into 3 different distinct silos, really trying to match that up to different job levels, different job responsibilities, saying that we're going to have an admin here, we're going to have a developer here, and then we're going to have a BI person here. Now, if we take a look at SharePoint as a slight compare-contrast there, you'll notice that 2 different decisions were made with versions 2007 and with 2010. Now, with 2007, there was no pro-level certification, that there was the TS-level certification for dev for both WSS and then one for MOS. And then for the admin side, there was one for WSS and then one for MOS. So there was actually 4 distinct certifications that you could have, 2 on each version of the product. Well, rolling forward into 2010, the decision was made actually twofold. Number 1, to actually come up with a pro-level certification. And then number 2, rather than splitting it up on SharePoint Foundation and SharePoint Server, but let's just test completely on SharePoint Server. So there's actually a TS and a pro level for the dev side of SharePoint 2010 Server, and there's the admin TS and pro level there. So that's the first step, is figure out exactly what areas do we want to test on. The next step from there is the objective domain. And I've actually worked on a couple of objective domains, and this is really interesting. And this is the part where I can say that, yes, the exams really are geared towards real world. Because what they will do is they will bring in a handful of SMEs, and basically they lock us into a room for about 3 days. And our job, by the time that we are done, is to come up with really what's going to wind up being posted on www.microsoft.com as the exam outline. So that's our job to come up with that. And what winds up happening is a real big debate over what's important, what's worth testing on, and what's not important, what should we avoid testing on. And it's really what we're looking for is the 80-80 rule. That this is what 80% of the people are doing 80% of the time. That we really are trying to not worry too much about the different trivial features. We're trying very hard not to worry about those items that really you don't find yourself reaching for on a day-to-day basis. Now, a little story here to go along with that objective domain. Actually, two real quick ones, if you'll indulge me. Number one was one of the ones that I worked on, and I have to be very careful about not being very specific about this, but there was one little feature that, depending on how you go in and implement it, you wind up getting very different sets of results, and that depending on your scenario, you either want to configure it this way or you want to configure it this way. And so we actually talked about this, came up with adding that to the objective domain, and then sure enough, I went back to take the exam a few months later once it actually had come out, and sure enough, didn't I see a question on that specific real-world scenario that I had brought up during the building of the objective domain. Another real big one, and one that I found very interesting, was there was another exam where the SMEs that were there were very adamant of this is the way that we like to implement something, or this is a feature, even though it's not supported, that we like to utilize. And there was a lot of back and forth between the product team and the SMEs about what it is that we want to do here, because if you called up Microsoft and you said, hey, this is what I'm doing, the answer is going to be, well, that's good. Have a good day, and leave it at that. And so after a lot of back and forth, what they eventually decided was that because of the fact that this is not really a supported scenario, and because of the fact that there are still some people that are doing it this way, the best course of attack is to simply leave that off. And so that was the decision that was made there. So the goal of the objective domain really is to come up with the real-world topics that we want to test on. The next step from there is then to blueprint that objective domain, and in particular, come up with the percentage that we're going to test for each objective. That what's the real important stuff, that just because we list everything off, there are certain things that are going to be much more important than other things. So for example, when you're talking about SQL Server, it's a lot more important that I know, for example, how to maintain and work with indexes rather than how to build tables. They're both important, but making sure that I choose good indexes, making sure that I maintain them is a lot more important, so that should be more heavily weighted. And so what you're going to notice is that when you go to, again, go to the outline, you're going to notice those percentages, and that's one of the other very big things that comes out of the blueprint is that weighting, what's actually important, what should we really be focusing our attention on. The next step from here is the item development, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time here, but there are a couple of very big points that I want to make on an upcoming slide. But the long and short of the item development phase is that it is all about developing those test questions. Now, I want to highlight that first bullet point there. The items are written to industry best practices and Microsoft standards, that they really are built towards making sure that this is a real-world style question. Now, one of the things that I always like to highlight on the individual items is people always come up to me and they will say, yeah, I don't think the exams are real world. Well, keep in mind that the exams are testing you on a Microsoft product. It's a Microsoft exam testing you on a Microsoft product. The answer is not going to be Veritas. The answer is not going to be MySQL. The answer is not going to be, what's the database that comes from that company that starts with an O? Oracle, something like that. But anyway, it's going to be a Microsoft product that's going to be the answer there. From there, the questions then go through an alpha review. And the way that the alpha review works is we bring back in another group of SMEs, and their job is to go through every single question and figure out what questions should be kept, what are good questions, and then throw the questions out that don't necessarily make sense, or maybe go back and revise them to make them better. So this is the first pass at trying to identify issues with the exams. The second pass is some level of a public beta. Now, who gets invited to the beta will generally depend on the actual beta. Quite frequently, it's going to be MCTs. Quite frequently, it's going to be SMEs that will be asked to go off and take the beta. Now, one of the things about the beta exams is that if you do get invited, you do get to take the exam for free. That's the good news. And if you pass the exam, then you actually do obtain the associated certification. The flip side, however, the little bit of bad news, number one is that it's going to be a much longer exam than what the final product is going to wind up being. Because one of the goals here is, again, we're trying to get rid of bad questions. The next little downside is you're going to notice questions on there that are probably not going to make the final cut. You're going to realize it pretty quickly. So there may be exams that you're just going to look at and cross your eyes at and just really trying to figure out what in the world happened there. That is going to happen, and those questions will, generally speaking, well, hopefully, disappear. And then finally, the last thing is that unlike any of the other Microsoft exams, you're not going to get your score right away. That the score will actually come at a later date, depending on when you took the beta. Generally speaking, it could actually be a couple, 3 months before you find out how you did. Now, the reason that it will take a while to find out how you did is because once everybody goes through the beta process, then all of the results from the beta process will then start to be processed. And there's a few different things that are going to be looked for here. In particular, it's going to be patterns. So, for example, are there questions that nearly everybody got right? If so, that might be too easy of a question. On the flip side, are there questions that everybody got wrong? And that might be because maybe it was too trivial of a question, maybe it was too tricky of a question, maybe it's just simply a bad question. And then there's also going to be other things where if we have people who did really, really well on the exam, and they consistently miss this question, want to find out, is that actually a good question? Is that actually trying to prove whether or not you were able to work with the product? On the flip side, there's also going to be the other side where if I've got a whole bunch of people that did really poorly, and then they all happen to get this one particular question right, that might be a signal that that's a bad question. So once the beta process is then completed, then the items are selected, and those will then become part of the actual exam. Now, another big way that that's going to eventually wind up becoming an eventual item is going to be based off of the comments that are submitted. One of the things that I just want to touch on real quickly here as an aside is when you go off and take an exam, if you notice that there's a question that could maybe use some clarification, maybe a question that you don't necessarily agree with, or maybe you're looking at it and you notice that there is a mistake in that question, please, please, please do comment on it. As you're going to see here in a couple of minutes, the exams are living, breathing exams that eventually they will be modified. Now, from there, once we actually select the items, the next step then is to do what's known as standard setting. All of the questions that you're going to face on any of the Microsoft exams are weighted. And so part of the standard setting is going to be figuring out, well, how many points is each question going to be worth? Something which I want to touch on here in just another couple of slides. Now, you'll also notice that the main goal here is to determine what the minimum level of competency is going to be. That we want to try and figure out that what is our goal here? How can we prove that yes, in fact, you can administer a Windows 7 machine, for example? Now, from there, they'll then generate the exam, generate the forms that are going to eventually be sent out, and then finally, the exam is published. Now, it doesn't stop here. From there, the exam will then be localized, translated, and then it's an ongoing process of continuing to look at the items, continuing to look at how people do on those to maybe continue to weed out different items. And then also, as time goes on, how people use the product changes. Service packs that may make changes are released. R2s come out. And so as a result, because again, trying to keep that exam real world, the exam may have to be modified. So as time goes on, the exam will continue to be modified. New items will be added. New items will be removed. Again, I mentioned in the comments that somebody may go in and actually make a very big point about a question and go, hey, you know what? This doesn't make sense, or this is not a fair question. Which brings us back to the questions themselves. I want to highlight this fact. There are no trick questions. And this is actually one of the hardest parts about creating exam items, is trying to come up with what are known as distractors, or simply the wrong answers, that are 100% incorrect, that don't meet the requirements of the question, would not actually complete the particular task, however, don't exist. So for example, one of the things that Dana was mentioning, the example that she was using, is that it can't simply be that, this one here is back up your SQL Server, this one here is rebuild your indexes, this one here is drop the table, and then the third one is banana. That it has to be something that exists. It's something that has to be real world. And for all of my developers out there, one of the other very big things to highlight is that the code has to compile. Now, it may generate a runtime error. It may not do what you're expecting it to do, but the code itself has to compile. So everything that you're seeing exists. Which, by the way, with that knowledge, one of the other things to kind of highlight is simple, clean, elegant. The simplest thing that works. That, generally speaking, the way that the products are built is, hey, you need to do this? Well, click on the big button that says do this. And so you may notice, hey, I've got this test question. It's asking me, how do I do this? Well, let's go with the big button that says, hey, do this. And so you're going to notice that every now and then you're going to get questions that are like that just that simple, clean, elegant, that sometimes, yes, the answer is just that easy. Again, there are no trick questions. There are no trick answers. I mentioned the scoring a couple of minutes ago, and the big thing that you're going to notice down at the very bottom there is 700 does not equal 70%. That all the exams are weighted, which, by the way, is a real quick exam tip. If you're going to be taking an exam, keep in mind that you get points for correct answers. You get 0 points for incorrect answers or for blank questions. Answer every single question. If you get it right, you get points. Good things happen. If you get it wrong, nothing happens. If you leave it blank, nothing happens. So you may as well put on an answer anyway. 700 is passing. 700, as a result, does not equal 70%. Now, when it comes to that 700, I like to say a little bit of new math. 700 equals 1,000. That there's only one spot where your score is going to be available, and that's going to be that printout that you get. It's not going to be on your transcript. It's not going to be accessible by anybody else. 700 is 1,000. Or, put another way, I suppose, if you get 701, you studied too hard. I'm just going to keep swinging at the jokes here, and eventually one will hit. But anyway, so 700 is it. If you scored 700, if you scored 1,000, and the exam was the TS exam on Windows 7 deployment, well, congratulations. You are now a technology specialist on Windows 7 deployment. I'm going to hit the right spacebar here. And the rest doesn't matter. Well, how do you prepare then for certification. How do you actually go about getting ready? Well, we mentioned right up top here, hands-on experience. That it is all about getting out there and actually working with the product. Now, one of the downsides to working with the product is if this is your full-time job, sometimes what winds up happening is you get real tunnel visioned. That you wind up working in that one little area that your job requires and not necessarily everywhere else. I was a full-time ASP.NET developer for quite a while, and one of the things that we weren't utilizing, simply because it was an internal application that I was working on, was forms-based authentication. It was just simply Windows-based authentication. The permissions, as a result, were very simple for us to go in and enforce. And as far as having to go in to what's known as the web.config file and configure permissions inside of there, or going in and setting up custom forms-based authentication, I had no idea how to do that because it was not part of my job requirement. Well, keep in mind that when you take the exam is going to be on the entire product, which may mean that you have to come out of your comfort zone. But that's actually a good thing. As Dana highlighted before, one of the big things about preparing for an exam is not only does it help you retain that information, but it also forces you out of your comfort zone. And next thing you're going to know, you're going to start learning about cool little things inside that product that maybe you've been working with this product for a year and you had no idea that they were there. So getting ready for an exam can also help broaden your horizons and actually make you a better fill in the blank here. And then, of course, once you start to identify, well, what are the problems? Then you want to start to fill in those gaps. And again, you can go back and start working again at it on your job. You can start working through different TechNet MSDN labs that are available, practice exams through different vendors like MeasureUp and Self-Test, which, by the way, are available here this week. And you'll also notice the trial versions, the betas. I'm a huge fan of the trial versions. Hey, you know what? I just need to play with something. OK, fine. Then just go stand up a VM real quick. Maybe go get a time-bombed VM and just go play with it inside of there rather than playing on your production environment. All right. Now, as far as your prep options go, you're going to notice that, of course, we've got classroom training. So coming off taking an exam from, or taking a class from a Microsoft certified trainer such as myself, you'll also notice that there are self-paced training kits. There's e-learning, online learning, and then there's the different practice tests and the online resources. Now, I want to highlight a couple of the different differences between them. Obviously, of course, the different Microsoft Press versus the classroom training versus the e-learning. Obviously, those are different delivery methods, and you'll choose what's going to work out best for you. But you'll also notice that there are training kits and there are practice tests, and those are going to be more geared towards the specific certification. So that classroom training, depending on the course, may be geared towards certification, but it's going to be much more geared towards, and you're going to notice that whoever your trainer is, generally speaking, is going to focus much more on real world and start to show, oh, okay, well, this is where you should do this is where you should not do this, and this feature is really, really cool, and this one is going to save you some time, and oh yeah, by the way, you know, I tried to implement it this way and it didn't work, and so forth. So that your classroom training and your e-learning are going to be a lot more about just learning the product rather than focusing in on a specific exam. The exam process itself. Couple of real quick basics here. You're going to notice that the environment is all going to be managed and maintained by Prometric. There are all sorts of different places that you can go to take certification exams. Basically, just head on over to www.prometric.com, and from there you can find your different training locations. Now, if you want to register, you can do so by phone or online, and they do ask that you do that 24 hours in advance. Now, in case you haven't already noticed this, we do have Prometric here this week, and you can actually go off and take your exams this week, which is really kind of nice. You can go off, take a couple of sessions, find out a little bit more about the product, go over there, do hands-on labs, get a little bit more hands-on experience, come on upstairs, visit me. You can then go ahead and start taking some practice exams that we have available. And then the desk right next door to us, you can then go ahead and register for the exam and take that, knock that out this week. So when your employer sent you out here, they're going to ask you, or at least whenever I was sent, I was always asked, hey, what did you actually do? Was this actually worth my money? Well, if you can go back with something tangible of, yeah, not only did I go off and start playing around more with product X, but I also managed to obtain this certification as part of that process. And so you can actually just go right up there, and depending on when you go, you may actually be able to walk right in. What I will say to you, however, is this. If your goal is to obtain a certification by the end of the week, and you're going, hey, you know what? I'm going to want a little bit of time to do some studying, to do some playing, to make sure that I'm ready. I'm here to tell you that plan, other people are going to have that one as well. And so as a result, if you're going to want to take an exam on Wednesday afternoon, or in particular on Thursday, do yourself a favor and schedule that exam. And the sooner the better, so that way you know that you'll have a slot, because it will get very busy in there on Thursday. And I would hate to see you do all that work this week, only be turned away on Thursday because there was no room to actually fit you in. As for the exam itself, you're going to notice that the questions are going to be some form of a combination of multiple choice. There may be graphical questions. There may be performance-based questions where they will present you with a scenario and then give you some form of a virtualized environment where you're going to be responsible for going off and fixing problem X or problem Y. As far as the number of questions that you're going to get, that will vary depending on the exam. The number of questions that you're going to get will, generally speaking, be in the ballpark of about 40 to 60 questions. Generally speaking, it's going to be in the ballpark of about 120 minutes. Now, you will notice that Microsoft does not make that information public, that the number of questions that you're going to see, the amount of time that you're going to get, that's not going to be public. And also keep in mind that just because you went in and you took an exam today and you saw X number of questions does not mean that you're going to be able to go back, or that your buddy is going to go back maybe a week later and see the exact same number of questions. Remember what we mentioned before is, of course, that the exams are continually undergoing review, and it very well may be that in that little week span that there was a new version of the exam that was pushed out. Now, of course, the passing score, 700. Always going to be 700. So that's the one number that I can guarantee you. It's always going to be 700 to pass. As we mentioned, the questions themselves are designed to test your knowledge, not your reading skills. They really are there to test your knowledge. Now, I do want to talk a couple of minutes here about dealing with some of those questions. You're going to notice that you have time for review. And as you're walking through the exam, on the upper left-hand corner, there'll be a little spot that will say Mark Question for Review. And here's the way that I like to handle my questions. Number one is, if I know the answer right away, I'm just going to mark that and then just move on. That, like I mentioned before, sometimes the answer is just simply click on big button that does this. Or, as I sometimes like to say to my dev folk, is sometimes the answer really is just simply console write line. That you are going to notice that sometimes you're going to get a question where the answer is just that obvious. Don't overthink it. Because if you overthink it, all you're going to do is wind up talking yourself out of the right answer, and you're going to wind up getting that one wrong. So if you know, hey, that's what it is, just click it, be done with it, and move on. Because there are going to be questions that are going to be more challenging. So how do we deal with those? Well, one thing that you can do is you can mark that for review later. So that way I can at least just kind of keep moving on, mark an answer. Make sure to do that. Just go ahead and flag it. Hey, I'll mark it for review later, and you'll notice that you'll have time at the end. Now, while you're looking at that tough question, a couple of things to look for. Number one is look to see if you can't eliminate wrong answers. Because on a basic 4-choice, multiple choice, almost always you can eliminate one right away. Cool. Well, now I've got my odds down to 1 in 3. Sometimes, quite frequently, you can get 2 eliminated. All right, well, now I got it down to a coin flip, 50-50. And every now and then, you'll even be able to eliminate 3 out of 4. And if I know that answers A, B, and C flat out will not work, even if I have no idea what in the world D is talking about, it's the only one that's left, it's got to be the right answer. Now, also, while you're looking at those questions, spot the differences between the answers. Because one of the things that will also help you do is it will also help focus you on what the question is actually asking, and it will help point you towards the right answer. That every now and then you're going to notice that your questions will maybe be, you've got A, B, C, and D, where 2 of these are some form of an opposing pair on one possible solution, and the other 2 are an opposing pair on a different possible solution. And so when you're looking at something like that, what you can do is very quickly go, oh, okay, well, I know that is not going to work, so I can instantly eliminate A and B, and now I can focus in on C and D and figure out which one's going to be right, which one's going to be wrong, and then go from there. And that's especially true for all my developer people that are out there. That one of the things that you're going to wind up doing is you're going to wind up seeing a lot of questions that will have code snippets on them, and trying to spot the differences there can be a little bit more challenging, but make sure that you pay attention to spotting the differences, and I'm here to tell you, there will be a difference between every single possible answer. It may take you 2 or 3 times of reading it, but I promise you that it's there. Now, once you finally get to that review screen, and by the way, keep an eye on your time, so that way you know that you'll have some time to go back and review, you can then actually just go back and only review the ones that you've marked. Now, what's nice about that is that maybe as you've gone through the exam, something jogged your memory. And you went, oh yeah, that's what that is. Cool. Well, then go ahead and change your answer. But having just said that, I'm now going to contradict myself. And I'm now going to say, be very, very careful about changing your answers at the end. Because more often than not, your first instinct is the right one. And I can't tell you the number of times where I have looked at a question, second-guessed myself, and put on the wrong answer. So be very careful about going back and changing your answers. Make sure that you've got a really good reason to go back and change that. Now, as far as the organizations that actually do our exam fulfillment, you're going to notice that it's Certipoint for the technology associate for the student level, and then for Prometric for all the TS level and the pro level exams. Now, when you take the exam itself, what should you expect? Well, immediately, unless it's a beta, you will get your score. It'll tell you right there what your score was, and it will tell you right there, pass or fail. Now, of course, that will take a few seconds. It may be the longest few seconds of your day, but it will tell you near instantly what your score was. Now, if this is your, actually, even if it's not, your first certification, usually within about 48 hours, you will then receive an email saying, congratulations, you've got your certification in XYZ or XYZ. And then you'll also notice that if this was your first ever certification, that you will also get your MCP ID as well. And it will give you a temporary access code for the MCP site. From there, within about 2 weeks, you should be able to associate your live ID to gain access to the MCP site. A couple of real big things that are on there is your transcript that you can see, your transcript sharing code, or your transcript sharing tool that you can use to share that transcript with potential employers, and then also your logo builder, so that way you can go back and update your blog, you can go back and update your business card with the appropriate logo. And I love that logo builder because what it allows you to do is it allows you to go in and choose the certifications that you have, the ones that you really do want to highlight, and then it will just generate the logo right then and there for you that you can then go ahead and add onto your business card, to your blog, or whatever it is. And then, of course, at any point, if you need help, you can go to www.microsoft.com/learning/MCP/support. Do you want to talk about what you can do this week? All right. I can do it.
I got it. Is it on? Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, so this week we have exam pack discounts for individuals and for partners, Microsoft partners. Individuals, you can get up to 30% off. So that is on a 5 exam pack. And on a 4 exam pack, same thing. The 2 and the 3 exam packs, you'll get 25% off. Now, the reason why this is important is because we are having a price increase that goes into effect July 1st. Right now, the price for exams in the US is $125 per exam. On July 1st, that price is going to go up to $150. But here's the good thing. I don't expect you to take 5 exams this week, okay? What we're doing is we're selling the exam packs. And if you go ahead and you take your first exam this week, or your second and third, or however many you want to take this week, your price is locked in on those remaining exams in your exam pack for the rest of 2011. So your price is locked in through December. So you get 6 months of sort of forgiveness on the price increase, okay? If you are a hiring manager for an organization, come and talk to us at the booth. We will talk to you about packs for your team that you can split up among your team and take those home with you. There is a different expiration date for the team packs. That is September 30th, okay? But if any questions you have on the exam packs, just come by the booth and ask us, or you can go by the testing center and ask the folks outside of there. We have the study hall and information desk. So the study hall is upstairs, and we have free practice tests that Christopher talked about from Self-Test and Measure Up, and free e-learning from Microsoft Learning, and Microsoft Pressbooks that you can use to kind of review information and experience that product also. The other product that we have up there are our Microsoft Certified Trainer Ambassadors. We have about 20 of these folks running around. They'll be wearing the green shirts, but they're going to have little badges on the side, little, I don't know, patches. And these folks are people who have lived the life, walked the walk, all of it. And they can definitely help you if you're trying to identify which exam you want to take. Hey, okay, should I take the .NET, the foundation exam first, or should I take my specialty exam? If I'm ASP.NET, should I take that exam, or should I take the foundation exam? They will tell you which one to take first, because I happen to know that you want to take your specialty exam first. Yeah. Okay. But they can help you out with things like that. We also have our Cram 4 exam sessions. So these are in the schedule builder under the C4E code. And in that, we have Microsoft Certified Trainers, and they are delivering basically exam tips and tricks on specific exams. And they build these Cram 4 exams based on the exam prep guide. So that blueprint or that objective domain that you find online that says, this is what we're going to test you on. This person is going to walk you through and say, okay, so on this, you really want to highlight and make sure that you know how this works, that kind of thing. Now, if you don't know anything about the technology, this Cram 4 exam session is not going to help you pass. But if you know the technology, this will help you feel more comfortable taking the exam and really know, and might highlight some areas where you want to go into the study hall and maybe take a second look at certain areas. And then we also, as Christopher mentioned, have the on-site testing center. This is a proctored room, and you will be expected to leave your backpack and your phone and all that stuff, because of course you could have something in there that could help you. So this is one of the ways that we fight piracy, is through the proctored testing process. If you have any questions whatsoever, or if you just want to find out more about certification or talk to some of the people who are certified, please come by the Microsoft Learning booth. We've got our community lounge there, a couple of sofas set up. You can sit and chat with people and just find out more. So thank you so much for coming, and let us know if you have any questions.
Thanks a lot, guys.